Hello humans, Drunk Robot here. The PTR for Season 4 has come and gone. It has solved a lot of issues and might have created a few new ones, right? I think there was a lot to gain from the PTR, and it really showed us a lot of things. So I wanted to at least give my perspective of how I felt the PTR went. I have a lot of ARPG experience, but I don't consider myself a real sweaty gamer. I have a life outside of making YouTube videos. This is more of a hobby for myself. You know, I mean, playing video games obviously is a hobby. You know, also making shitty music that no one listens to. Regardless. So I talked about in my last Epoch review that got shelved for the D4 beta and the Eclipse and other shit that happened. But I've always enjoyed the loops, the gaming loops of modern Diablo games. I am biased, I'm not gonna lie. I want this game to be good, and it broke my heart that Season 3 was so terrible. It killed me that the whole D4 out of 10 meme became true, right? So many of my friends finally got their one over told you so moments, or at least that's what my intrusive thoughts in my brain, told me. So I had already planned at least to attempt Season 4 before I heard about the rumblings of what would later become the PTR. But before the recent announcement in PTR, my hope for Season 4 was pretty bleak. Like the Ruined era in last Epoch levels of bleak. So the format of this review will follow as such. I want to hit on things that in a relatively chronological order. It's easier for me to kind of tell the story as I experienced it. I didn't follow any guides going in. I was actually kind of out of left field. I didn't look into much. I was pretty checked out of the game after Season 4 was so fucking terrible. So, this is kind of as I went through, took notes. I'm going to describe how I experienced it. So I've heard a couple of the reviews or heard about them. This is not going to be as positive. It's not very negative. It's a very mixed bag after I was done writing. And to be fair, I enjoyed the PTR, but in retrospect, there was a lot of little things that I found out that kind of really bugs me about the PTR. So let's get into it going now. To start off, I was pleasantly surprised. I actually showed up like an hour or two late. I was off those days to get into PTR, and it booted up immediately. So I didn't expect that. Congrats, Blizzard. You did one thing right? I loaded up fairly quickly, and then my heart sank into the core of the earth upon the realization that I could not simply skip the campaign, right? So in my head, I'm like, oh shit, I have to do this again. I begrudgingly carried on because, I was excited for the changes. And I made a comment after I got into the global chat that I thought it's bullshit that I have to do the campaign again to be greeted by the wonderful D4 fan base that, and they told me that I am in fact, the biggest idiot on the face of the earth for not knowing that there was an NPC in Kyovashad that will skip you to, 100 after you finish the prologue. Apparently, I was not the only one who missed that because, I guess a couple hours or a day after I did, went through this, they patched that out. Some of the harassment I got in the chat was there's apparently some announcement. And again, on retrospect, I wouldn't go looking for that. And
well, I'm going to look super hard.
But I did not find it. And I'm sure somebody who cares enough will find it and put in the comments. And great, I'm glad it existed. But I follow a lot of YouTubers and none of them mentioned it either. So that was a little, more of a normal Blizzard start, right? And also kind of a stain that felt, and it really reminded me of the fan base that still believes in D4. And quick side note on that, I frequent many groups, and I can't tell you how unrealistic these members are, many of which will go on and on about how terrible a person you are for not liking D4 in its current state. Mind you, this is pre-PTR. This is all of Season 3, and how the game's actually enjoyable, but you are the haters. You are, in fact, wrong for hating D4. Newsflash, they wouldn't have done this massive change if the current state before this patch was anything that resembled good. There's a reason it got changed, and that's because it was not good. So let's just kind of get past that. I get to Kyovashad, talk to the guy, and boom, I'm level 100. Awesome, I have the gear, wonderful. I like how they just kind of give you what, seemed to be everything. You had an armor piece for everything. Awesome. Totally cool with that. You had all the aspects. Awesome. I'm sure someone will complain that we didn't start with max roll aspects. I think I read that somewhere. I don't really have an issue with that because I've done prior PTRs for Diablo 3, and it's kind of also the progression of the game should be tested in the PTR servers, right? That's kind of the point of it. It would have been nice to have max aspects just to test builds, but as we're going to go into further, the whole aspect thing and max aspect or not didn't really matter at the end. because this goes into one of my biggest critiques of the PTR and maybe the end game in general as it is currently. At least I don't know how the PTR was, and I'm sure it's going to get tuned later, but I shouldn't be severely resource starved at endgame. I understand a little bit, right? Because you don't want to just have everything you need forever and just be able to re-roll everything. It would be broken, right? But if I go out and game for an hour and I come back to town to look over my gear and change some things, and I can only change one item, barely, that's an issue. For perspective, I love D3. I probably played it way too much. Generally, I would play till my Gadala shards, that's what I called it, I don't remember what it was actually, were full, and then I'd push the GRs, maybe GBs too, right? I'd push the GRs, I'd do that for like an hour. That would get me about full with Kadala. I'd go back to town. As I was going through, I'd put stuff in the inventory that I might come back and look at. I had a nice loot that after an hour, I had a good amount of loot that I can go through. I'd roll all my Kadala stuff, see if I get some of those, whatever I was looking for, whatever legendary items, and then I'd rinse repeat. I spent about 5-10 minutes playing with my gear after an hour of playing. And it was a good amount of like in between that kind of got me through. This was fine. And it felt like every time I went back to town, I had enough resources to do things with my gear, right? It felt like I was making some progress on my character. In the PTR, I would grind for an hour, come back to town, and maybe able to temper once, right? I found later that different aspects of the endgame rewarded you differently, and Nightmare Dungeons seemed to do better for some resources, but I might have been wrong. The resource I starved was basically the whole PTR was Vialed Crystals. It was painful. And it really felt as a mistake since it's a rare crafting material, and the legendary ones, I know there's a couple, those were fine. I had plenty of those. They're all over the place. But honestly, the Vialed Crystals and the hunt for them made the PTR more painful than it needed to be. And maybe the seasonal mechanic will actually fix that, but I don't know. I could go on for this, but I'm actually gonna touch back on this later, but I'm gonna stop for now. All right, let's go into more good. Helltide, fucking awesome, right? No surprise, just like everyone else reviewing it, it was fantastic. I love the variety. I love the little worm guys from Dune popping out of the ground and spitting enemies. Remind me of Diablo 3. Fantastic. The whatever lady boss in the center that you summon, just like the old vampire stuff. Fantastic. The little counter, just like the vampire stuff. They come get you every now and then. Fantastic. It felt good. I also love how I just noticed like resource Vialed Crystals were just dropping randomly. I know there's a change that happened not too long ago. I don't think I was playing at the time, or maybe did barely. It was noticeable now, right? And another complaint.
God, I'm already getting into it.
Helltide is great, right? All right. Another complaint is the rares. They can't roll with greater affixes, right? So what's the point of having rares at all?
Right.
What's the point of them even dropping on the ground? I get that the new crafting material, crafting system is supposed to be a copy of Last Epoch, and I love how you change your homework ever so slightly to get it there, but when you did that, you made rares useless when they actually weren't before. If you had a good roll in a rare, you could trade it and then imprint an aspect. It had some meaning, but now it has none. So, like, could we find a way, like in Last Epoch, where rares can be part of the game? Maybe you can craft on that third aspect that you need before you go into like all the tempering and stuff. I don't know. So I love the Helltides. I move on to the pit. No surprise. I was already talking about how much I love Greater Rifts. I was a big fan of the pit. It was cool. I like how it linked it to the new masterworking system. Again, it was a good, there's a rhyme to the reason. You need more materials for masterworking, you go do more pit, right? I don't know why they gave you rares at the end of it. It seemed pointless. And I honestly wish they gave you more resources to do the harder pits at the end, right? Like, I should get more Vialed Crystals for doing harder ones so I can craft more easily, because it requires more crafting materials to get into it. So again, the crafting, the requirements for it and the drops we're getting on the ground, just not there. So I was gearing up the companion druid build you should be seeing on screen. Custom creation, had a lot of fun with it. It's not perfect. I'm working on it. Sound like Trump there. It's not perfect. I'm getting there. It's great, but it's just not there. We're just doing a little bit more. I was lacking some uniques or some I don't know, thought behind it to make it work. And after 10 hours of playing, I had enough materials to start farming the Uber bosses, right? So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go get some uniques. I'm gonna spark through, and I absolutely dominated the whole rogues gallery of Uber uniques. Got some uniques, moved my build a little bit further. It was doing good. I was feeling good, but I still felt like it being the PTR, the unique drops were not quite where they should have been. right? It didn't feel accelerated. It almost felt as it normally felt, just plain, at least back in season 2. That could also be that like this is one of those the grass is greener kind of comparisons where maybe it wasn't, and I'm just rose-colored glasses for the history. At this point, I'm getting a rotation, right? I'm getting a feel. I'm doing some pit, I'm doing some dungeons, I'm doing some hell tides. I'm still strapped for wild crystals. Super frustrating. It made me wanting to advance my homebrew build harder, much harder. It felt impossible. It was like 70 some wild crystals just to change one aspect. Like if I wanted to like, oh shit, what I had on the boots was stupid, I need to change that. I actually think I have footage of how stupid it was on the boots, but it was so expensive to change, and I got way more out of just leveling up with tempering, which was cheaper. It's like 20 to temper. I'm like, I didn't know what to do, right? But I digress. World bosses felt meh. I feel like the power creep has really caught up to world bosses in such an aspect that they feel like completely irrelevant. Why do I do world bosses except for just the drops? We should make those harder. Anyways, Legion events in a Helltide were really good. It was just absolute chaos because like I knew this was happening. As some people would reach their whatever the vampires start hunting you thing that's for now Helltide in the middle of the Legion event, so it would start triggering that, and then a ton of guys would show up, and you're all killing all those guys because everyone had crazy builds, and then you would cascade to the fact that everyone's just going through there. We sat at the end of one of the Legion events and was just farming off of each other as we kept triggering the whatever the max Helltide thing was. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was crazy. As I was advancing my build, I noticed my next big issue after getting further and further and further into the pit. I was doing plenty of damage to my build, but I was getting absolutely bopped, right? One-shot mania, it still existed, and max resistance and a massive health pool of like, I think I had like 20 or 30,000, did fuck all to help for that, right? So I had to retool again. I added a ton of DR, damage reduction, into my build, and while it did better, it wasn't a ton better, and it could be because of terrible building, but also I had very limited ways of getting damage reduction. I think I heard something from someone, it might have been Rax, where that was by design. They made it harder to get DR on purpose, but like, cool, I understand that, but you know, it just didn't feel fun, right? The point is, when I die in a game, I want to know why I died, right? Did I miss a skill? Did I miss a step, right? Did I just play poorly? Did I fall into a trap? It is not fun to get 100 to 0 for no freaking reason when you're already playing a decently high level perfectly fine, right? I am going through and just stomping the content, and then I just get bopped, right? It's ridiculous. This is stupid. It needs to be worked. There should be a reason why I got killed. I should know the reason why I got killed. It's stupid. Okay, back on to positives. I loved tempering in the masterworking system. It felt good. It felt really good. It felt like you're making useful change. You felt the change on your gears after you got it. I just wish I had more rares to actually do it more. I had plenty of the whatever materials you needed for it, but I had no rares, right? And it made it so I was super limited to get any of that in. I think I got through the second level of masterworking, which is like level 8 on one item. So I had a good amount of time, but not a ton amount of time, right? Again, they need to retool the rare drops anyways. Speaking of drops, I really liked the greater affixes. I thought it was really cool. The biggest issue is I didn't notice them until like a couple hours into the game. And again, I went in relatively blind, right? Like I knew that they were going to be a thing because again, YouTubers, but like I wasn't following a guide, no builds or anything. I didn't know what I was looking for. I knew that these things existed. I thought they'd be a different color or something, and they're not. It's just a dash and a number next to a regular ass item. That's stupid. They need some sort of visual cue besides text that this is a better item. The last major thing I want to talk about is the boss rotation, or at least what's currently going on. And I want to talk about the boss rotation, talk about the Uber boss rotation. It was great. You got boss materials basically everywhere. So like it made it very easy for me to go through and start doing it. It sucked that the ice boss was bugged. It wasn't dropping the material supposed to, so you could have done Endarial, but I never got around to it. Sucked. Regardless, I was progressing pretty far. I felt really good. I like I said earlier, I stomped all the Uber bosses pretty easily. I got up into the pit in Nightmare Dungeon, maxed out. I was hitting level 150 enemies. I felt like I should have been comfortable enough to attempt a harder version of Arshan. So I loaded him up. I had the materials. He's level 200 and just slapped me silly. I survived a lot further than I would because I'm, again, talk about the DR. I built a lot of damage reduction, so I was taking a hit from him. But I couldn't do any damage to him. It was terrible. Which, again, mind you, this 200 level Varshan, I could take a lot of hits from, but in the same like 150 Nightmare Dungeon level monsters that could also still pop me. Again, something's wrong there. But anyways, got me thinking. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just Varshan. Let's try the ice boss. We'll try because I needed the materials for Andariel. So I did the harder version of that, and again, just got Slizzity slapped because he was level 200. Yay, awesome. So I stopped at that point. It got me thinking, I like the new Uber bosses. They should be hard. Duriel should be level 200, absolutely. But Varshan shouldn't be. He should be level 150. Like, once you get into that end of the build, you should start circling back through these Uber bosses, because, like, at least my progression is once I start going through, I kind of test myself a little bit, and I start taking on those Uber bosses for the first time as I'm going through. Like, my build isn't really maxed out at that point, but I start taking them on as I'm pushing myself to the highest Nightmare Dungeon levels. We should have that again with the pit. As your master working on your gear, you're getting further up, you're getting better rolls. Varshan should be 150. The Ice Beast guy, I forget, that's like 85. So he should be like 190 or some shit. Take whatever their level was initially, multiply by 2, and make that their Nightmare Uber version, whatever, their super harder version. I really think that would be a better system than what having them all be 200. Again, doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really grind you through. There's no, there's rewards for the drops, cool, but there's no, it's not a progress as you're moving through. I also think there should be a level 200 Uber Lilith, all right, as a true capstone. Make her ridiculously hard, but able to be killed for people as they finish their season's journey, right? And I understand you want these people to stay in the game, and trust me, with the amount of stuff that's in the game right now, there's a ton to do, and it's kind of a bit of an issue, but it's not quick to getting fully geared out, right? It takes you a time. It takes quite a hell amount of time. Once you're at max level, it's going to take you quite some time to get like really to the toppest tiers of damage, where before it really wasn't that bad, right? It's going to probably, if I had to guesstimate, probably like 4 times longer to get to the maxity point past that diminishing returns, right? Make an Uber Lilith level 200, make her the final capstone for the game, for the season. You add a cosmetic to it, some sort of background or something that says this person is a badass, and then let them wear that badge for future seasons, right? I think this is a way you can reward your most hardcore gamers, the ones that keep spending way too much money on this broken game for you, right? Because this is the other aspect, is the battle pass is just plain, right? Yeah, there's some of the challenges at the end that are a little bit harder, but they're cake, man. Anyone with half a brain cell could be able to complete the battle pass, where the season's journey, getting the max level, was actually fairly difficult. It was fun. It was rewarding to get through it. There's a couple that, like, I just got frustrated with the season. It's not like I couldn't do it. It was just kind of like, oh man, this is, whatever. Usually this had to do with the getting the, what was it called? The different set dungeons. Yeah, it's a set dungeons. Those fucking drove me nuts, because like you'd be so powerful, you have to like dial yourself back just to do the set dungeons and the stupid challenges that go along with them. Anyways, I digress. There should be a reward past the battle pass, because it doesn't quite really give you the same satisfaction of like, oh, I am good because I completed the season journey, like it was in D3. So make an Uber Lilith with a badge or some sort of title that shows each season, that shows you actually did something, right? Give a reward to the most grindiest players. Give them something to shoot for, because currently there is nothing past the end of it. Like, and I get in Diablo 3 there wasn't as either, but like right now it's good, it's improved, but there's still issues. Anyways, let's get into final thoughts. I enjoyed the PTR. It felt great. I really enjoyed it. It still has a lot of issues, as we stated, as we went over. I think it's a step in the correct direction, but to the title, is D4 fixed now? No, I don't think it is. I do think it's a step in the right direction, and I'm glad the team is listening, but there's still more work to be done. I will definitely play Season 4, and this is the other aspect, is the Season 4 mechanic. Like, I've heard some of the Iron Wolves talk it needs to slap. It needs to slap hard if this game is going to be considered saved. I think it's hanging on by a thread. And yeah, I think this PTR adds some confidence back. It's still not perfect. And especially if it gets boring or it's too hard or too tedious. Point is, one easy mistake going forward can just completely demolish this game. And the team needs to be very careful going forward, because this game is hanging on by a thread for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people have already checked out and they'll never come back, or they might not for a very, very, very long time. But to start working to try to get some of those people back that you lost from launch, you need to be perfect or close to perfect. And this is good, but we need more of this, more in this correct direction. You need to further work these things out. Find a way to get the casuals happy and playing, but also find a way for those most hardcore fan bases that they are rewarded as well. Because that is something that Diablo 3 did so well, is it rewarded the sweaty gamers that wanted to grind out a season. And you would play for a couple weeks, you'd get all your season's journey done, and you were good. And you put it down, go play something else, and come back. Right now, besides this PTR, after season 3, I did not really want to come back. I was gonna give it one more shot, but I'm close to finish with this game. I want it to be good, man, but Blizzard, you're fucking up. Get it right. All right, that's all I gotta say about this. Thanks for listening. I think I probably said too much. A lot of this is gonna get edited out, so hopefully it doesn't suck. Anyways, that's all I got. Thanks, humans. Robot out.